Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email us, Team Mosso at the1916company.com for purchase pricing and availability questions regarding this watch. Today we're discussing a limited edition of 500 pieces, yes, 500 pieces, launched back in 2018. This is the Panerai Radiomir 1940 Art Deco, the PAM00791. It was part of a pair of watches inspired by vintage pendulum clocks and wind-up clocks, and you can see that the dial is distinct from anything prior or subsequent. It's truly a unique reference that looks like nothing else in the Panerai catalog. The timepiece is large in stainless steel at 47 millimeters in diameter, 16.3 millimeters thick, lug-to-lug tip 56.5 millimeters, with a 26 millimeter spacing in between the lugs. Throw this watch on my wrist, and my wrist is 16 centimeters in circumference. You can see it's a big watch, although with Panerai big is the look, I don't think this is ridiculous, at least not if you're into the Panerai aesthetic. I think too big is just right with these, and so I generally tell people, look at the case, not the lugs. With the Panerai, look at the case. Is the case inboard of the edge of your wrist? If the answer is yes, then the watch fits. Now, it's not thin, though it is sloped. It should slide underneath the jacket cuff. It's broad from lug to lug, but then again, that is part of the aesthetic. But the lugs are sort of short, stumpy, and really just there to sling the strap over the edge of the wrist. The strap's a lovely piece. You can see that it's kind of rustic. It doesn't have extensive tanning. You could still see the grain of the material, including some of the imperfections. You could see this is a Panerai factory strap in outstanding condition. You've got that 1970s style Panerai OP logo, a very lightly contrasting stitch, and a thick piece of leather. As you could see, sheer cut and profile. They're certainly not shorting you the hide. We also have a simple polished trapezoidal steel pin buckle. This watch is made the old school way at Panerai, which means that the straps are held to the case using screws and bars. So if you are a paneristo and you've got the jeweler's screwdrivers at home, you can jump straight into swapping straps. Again, a 26 millimeter spacing between the lugs. No brand, not Audemars Piguet, not Rolex, none of them have more aftermarket options for strap swapping than Panerai. It is truly part of the culture of collecting the brand to swap the straps. They often say new strap, new watch. It can change the whole character. There are many factory options, but there are also some aftermarket constructors who only do Panerai straps. And as a result, it's a little piece of adhesive. Don't be fooled by that. As a result, anything is possible. Stingray leather, synthetics, Alcantara, you name it, it's out there. The watch uses the Radiomir 1940 case, which means you've got these lugs that are much stronger, both visibly and physically, than the wire style you see on the earlier Radiomir models. Now, the watch also includes a crown, which includes polish and media blast with the OP logo, the 70s style one you saw on the strap. It's a screw down. The watch is 100 meters water resistant. This is one of the few modern Panerai references that actually features a vintage style thermoplastic or plexiglass, just like the Panerai watches of the 30s, 40s, and 1950s. It's the dial where things get a little bit different. By the way, the plexiglass, some people ask, well, doesn't it scratch? And the answer is yes, but it's also very easy to buff out, and it can be done with typically a abrasive that's much like a pencil eraser. Any swatch store can do it for you, but the Panerai boutiques or jewelers are also perfectly capable. Taking a look at the dial, Panerai credits this design to a pendulum clock sold at the old Florence Panerai Orologeria. But the bottom line is that this is actually a design common to many clocks from the first half of the 20th century. Italian clocks, German clocks, Swiss clocks, pendulum clocks, wind-up spring-powered clocks. It's a look that is very unique in a Panerai wristwatch, but very generic in first half 20th century clocks. So it could have come from a number of different sources. What's important is that it looks like no other Panerai, and even very, very few other watches. This is one of the most distinctive models, really, since the original Bronzo to hail from Panerai. The hands are the most interesting part of the dial because it's a design found on no other Panerai model, but also this is one of precious few Panerai references not loomed in any regard. An Art Deco aesthetic, very much. Remember, Art Deco was sort of a design trope that was dominant through the 1930s and 1940s, often described as a sort of streamlined modern or machine age aesthetic. And you can see right here the time zone function of the hour hand is part of this watch, so I can change my time zone as I move without displacing my minute hand. If I pull the crown out all the way, now I activate synchronized setting. You can see how the hour hand in particular features a little delta extension, and then both of them are faceted for better contrast against this ivory dial base. Turning it all over, we have the second generation Panerai caliber P3000, so we have these individual finger bridges, and the total construction is a little bit thinner than the prior 3000. Twin barrels, 72-hour power reserve, 3 Hertz. It's got the time zone function, though not hacking. It has a full balance bridge with a free sprung balance for shock resistance, and a balance that is physically large with an enormous amount of mass to better keep time in the face of bumps, concussions, and shocks. And I mentioned earlier on that this is a 500-piece limited edition, and that's important because a lot of reports on this watch, both at the time and to this day, continue to reference it as a 300-piece limited edition. It's 5. That's not to say it's common, it's just to say precision is always preferable. The finishing on the movement is handsome, though mechanically applied, and the movement is properly sized for this large case as it is a Panerai in-house caliber. With the twin barrels, it has a nice flat torque curve, so it keeps excellent time over its 72 hours of reserve. If you love this watch, reach out to Team Mosso at the 1916company.com for purchase and pricing details.